welcome to the Node.js Node add-on team meeting for, it's October 11th, 2024. We'll follow our standard approach of going through our project board. The one thing I will say is that we should maybe start with is the the automation has opened the issue to release 8.2.1 with effects. Any reason why we wouldn't merge that now? I don't see, I just see some people saying, yeah, I don't see any concerns, so I think I'll just do that, and I think that'll just result in a publish, right? So that would be good.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I have done that. So that's great. Thanks for everybody's help in jumping into that and working through it. That's one of the things I think it's great. As a team, we had a bunch of different people jump in and sort of help when we need to do those kinds of things. Okay, I will share my screen. Or maybe I already did. Good. And I will go to, I think it's sharing, right? Like the
I don't see a screen actually.
Okay. Maybe it's just a green button. I thought it was green telling me I'd done it. There we go.
There we go. Yes.
Okay. Good.
One quick thing. I'm not sure if any of you have noticed, but Michael, when you're sharing your screen, your voice is starting to stutter a little bit. So it's as though you're running out of bandwidth. It's still understandable, but just so you know, at least to me.
I thought it was just me, but yeah, I see that too.
Okay. I'm gonna stop and restart one thing.
Actually, you're good now. You're good, right?
It's good today. It's usual stuff. Like I think it's Gabriel said, but today is good. It's perfect.
Today's good. Okay. It's not my bandwidth because I got tons of bandwidth, but I do have it's like I don't know. It's an old NVIDIA thing that like cancels out noise. And so it requires some bandwidth and sometimes some CPU cycles, and then sometimes something else interferes with that. But anyway, as long as I'm good today, then I'll just keep going. But yeah, let me know because I think I periodically have to restart whatever it is that's doing that. Okay, done. Anything we want to chat about in the done side? No? Okay, we'll go into the has PR. Those, I think that was one mention. Vladimir, you said is ready, just needs.
Yeah, I just approved it. So the PR for the create buffer from array buffer should be green now and ready to go. It has like 4 or 5 approvals, so definitely good.
And Chinjon said like a CI pass, so we probably can just simply kind of say, ask a robot to merge it, I guess.
Well, here, let me just go in. So that is this PR. If the CI is green, it looks.
I think we can just add the label, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to do. I'm just going to add in the label that's like the commit queue. That should result in it being. I think that should squash it as well.
I think there is another kind of label to squash as well. Yeah, commit queue squash. Yeah.
Right. So does that say the commit queue to? Just want to see what that tells it to. I assume, because I assume though we'd want to squash them all.
I sometimes so like if it's just commit queue doesn't work, you have to somehow put them both. I don't know how it exactly works.
Okay, maybe. Let me see what it just says here. Where are labels?
Yeah, you do need it. Commit queue squash means add this label to instruct the commit queue to squash all the PR commits into the first one.
Right. I'm just really surprised that that isn't our default. Anyway,
I know.
Because like we always want to squash except in special cases. So it might be like, yeah, okay. I'll have to look at that again because I'm surprised because otherwise it'd be just too easy to not squash it. Okay, so done. That should just land. That's good. Anything in progress that we want to chat about this week?
I didn't do much progress with C-based API this week, but I was thinking about this stuff. Especially, I was kind of made some research around libuv library. For some
Okay.
reason, I believe like libuv does not have a BI stable API, but reading through documentation and stuff, like it seems like libuv developers saying that it is ABI stable. So technically, in the last few years, they didn't do much breaking changes. Like, at least what I understood from documentation.
It's like not promised, but doesn't change a lot, is my understanding, right? Like there is a 2.x even line where that might be more breaking than the 1.x line. And I don't know if Node will, like Node still sticks on the 1.x line. And
I see.
like it's not, I've heard that before. It's like they don't change much, but I don't think they promise not to change it either.
It's just more or less question like at some point changelog gave two comments about this C-based API. So one of them was like, should we just expose libuv somehow? Like we pretty much we do expose it with libuv loop in our current node API.h, and we were talking about deprecating this API at some
Yeah.
point. So I assume that we want to do it because we consider libuv not API stable. But
I think we agreed, like we discussed when we discussed this last, I think we agreed that we could start with a simpler API which wouldn't expose that kind of stuff.
okay.
And I think it was even like because it's in C++, people could and it's using the Node API, like the Node internals already, people could write their own things that would actually expose the internals relatively easily if they needed to. So I think at least like to start, there was my remembering is like the consensus was okay. Now let's expose like let's not expose the internals. Let's just keep it to the minimal API and
Okay. Uh, so and also like another kind of comment was from changelog about exposing some V8 API. We also pretty much the same stuff as libuv. We're not exposing to start with.
yeah. Yeah, I think that was, he was involved in that discussion. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but the way I remember, he was kind of like, yeah, after the discussion, okay, was starting with the more limited set to start with.
I see. Okay. I guess like one more question. We kind of I was thinking like even would it be possible, for example, using libnode as just maybe like a V8 JavaScript engine. So technically we do have Node API just to communicate with all these V8 objects. I think what we need to do is just to create some kind of isolate of V8. But it does not make sense to make it in disconnect from the rest of the Node initialization stuff.
You're
So say
saying,
that
would we make a JavaScript specific, like we, sort of in the Node API, we have the JS native API and then the Node one, which says like some parts are JavaScript independent, like engine or JavaScript independent, and those all come from the engines. And then there's some like Node specific things. And so we've separated. Is that what you're talking about or something different?
yeah, like I guess like do we want to cover scenarios that people want to use libnode as just V8 engine effectively? We will have some maybe minimal embedding API which would allow people to create isolate or create whatever like context and
I see.
no specific stuff besides Node API. Like so, Node API will be used to communicate through all these V8 objects and stuff, but we'll just have some minimal stuff to start it without maybe the rest of Node.
I
Do you
think
want?
I think
I don't know.
sorry. I think one of the fundamental things that we would lose is the ability is like the module loader, right? Because that's what really allows you to scale JavaScript, right? And bring in lots and lots and lots of JavaScript is the module loader. I
Right.
think that's pretty deeply tied to Node. So I mean, I'm sure there are use cases where you just want V8 plus a nice C wrapper on top, right? But I don't know how much value that would be, right? Without the module loader. So
Yeah,
that's the only sort of, I mean, yes, it's a great exercise, but I'm not sure how many use cases you could cover with that, right?
yeah, I agree. I was like mostly thinking towards like using it in kind of together with React Native, for example. Right? Like React Native needs JavaScript engine, and we want to do it.
Uh-huh.
But definitely, like you have a good point that having kind of custom modules that effectively is the whole power, if you like, of Node.js. It's the whole this module system.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I know React Native, or I kind of know that React Native right now, I don't think it uses the Node module loader system. It has its own, right?
Right, right.
So then, I mean, if we added Node API to that, then it would already be kind of okay. But I actually maybe not. I don't know. Like how would you like what would be the build process for like um, a native package that would then be exposed via uh, probably Hermes to React Native, right? Um, so, because like React Native has a module loader system, yay. But does that module loader system include the ability to load modules that were compiled from native code, right?
No,
That's
I'm not referring to this different JavaScript engine like Hermes. Hermes is different JavaScript engine. I was talking about mostly as we have this lib node, and my question was like, so technically, in some sense, lib node, what was node.js? People saying it's V8 engine, libuv plus a lot of other kind of bindings and m- m- module system. The question was like, do we want to have one of the embedded scenarios and pretty much just exposing V8 core, if you like?
actually,
The only interesting concept in mind, like that for me, if the API, like, because I can see like, so there's basically the JavaScript engine, and then there's the node environment, right?
Mhm.
And I could see something where, and it would possibly just be a small change in the API where it would be like, by default, you get the node environment, but like you can pass in your own environment. And that would then let you pass in like a null environment or possibly pass in some subset of the node environment. Like you're like, well, I don't want to load modules, so I don't want to have that functionality, right? And you could somehow construct your own environment that only has the bits and pieces you want. I wouldn't want to like try and figure that all out to release this, but like if something in the API made it easy, like made it easier for us to think about that later so that, it was basically there's an option to say, just start and you'd get the node environment or start and get this like some other environment structure. Um, but like we might say, but that's not actually supported now, right? Like the only option you have is you pass in a null environment and we just don't add the things like I don't know how practical this is, but like we just don't add all the node environment if you
Yeah,
pass in a null one, right? Like, and then that could later maybe be extended to, oh, you can somehow construct one, which would be added, and when we get it, we could do the right things.
yeah. From the
Did, did,
practical point of view, we have currently today we're building some kind of V8 DLL. And this V8 DLL currently uses can expose a Node API. So technically, I took this bunch of Node API code we
Yeah.
have to in Node.js project, and I put it inside of this V8 DLL, which we're building. So what I was thinking, like, if we have this maybe lib node, I can pretty much effectively merge these two projects together in some
Mhm.
sense.
So like
So,
maybe it's like a because you've already built this in a way where a lot of it's like there's callbacks and like
Right.
the callbacks basically set up that environment, right? So, maybe you can achieve this with like there's a default callback that will set up the node environment. Um, and if you replace that with one that does nothing, then like you don't get the node environment, but the rest of the stuff, like I don't know if then just the rest of the API still just works in terms of like, hey, here's a script, I want to run the script, right? And like because as long as it doesn't depend on anything that was provided by the node environment, you're good, right?
Right. So
So
I
it's
have
kind of, I guess, sorry.
yeah, there's another thing like so Node provides a lot of like stuff that is not absolutely necessary, right? Like things like HTTP and DNS and even Undici and that kind of stuff, right? So those are sort of a lot less essential than, say, the module loading system, right? That's pretty much, without that, you don't really have scalable JavaScript. Um, and so as kind of an intermediate step, with perhaps slightly more scope than what Michael said, but a lot less scope than like a full node environment, would be to just like take those out. Like even things like DNS and net and TCP and crypto and all those things. Especially if whatever target environment you have already has those, then maybe you can plug those in via the module loader system, you know, have like special cases that recognize or just implement DNS as whatever that environment already has, you know. But I mean, you gotta draw the line. Basically, we're basically taking a scalpel to Node and seeing how much of this would be useful outside of Node, right? Outside of the Node binary.
Yeah, and I'd be thinking, instead of trying to invent what that would be, like having a way where somebody could write their own code to build whatever the environment they want would be a good starting point, versus like, well, let's choose a subset, right? But who knows if we'll get that subset right.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
that would be a good way to start, right? It's kind of like, here's the callback, and if we have a default implement, and if it can be that like our default implementation of the callback takes it from just the V8 engine to the V8 with all the node environment, that's good. And then if somebody wants to write their own, they can really figure it out. And eventually, if they're like, well, everybody does is writing their own to do X, then that might be a subset we want to include in as an option that says like, okay, there's some way, there's some other
Exactly.
callback you can specify, right?
That's actually a great point, right? Because then uh, you can end up like, oh no, I have to write this, I have to write that just to make it work, right? But then if Node already has this and that, which you would have to write, we could make it easy to just draw the lines in some other way, right? Like, oh no, I have to, I have to write a DNS thing. Well, wait a minute, Node has one, but it's difficult to add because libnode was defined like this. Why, right? So we can make it so that, well, potentially make it so that, drawing the lines is easy and potentially even like a compile time decision or a configure time decision,
Right.
right? So like, exclude or include or whatever, right? On the configure command line. And then you would get like a really stripped down version, as stripped down as you need of Node, right? And then build that as a shared library, and then boom, that's libnode. That's that. I think that's the concept, I
Yeah,
guess.
I don't know what terminology we've used before, but like I know we've had the concept of, there's like the JavaScript engine and then the host, or it might, I don't know if host is the right word, but like something which is like, the place that runs, like, Chrome is a host for the V8 JavaScript engine because it provides, like, in the web, how you write files and do all those kind of things. Similarly, Node provides that on the server side. And I think that concept is, and I'm just thinking I've got the wording wrong, but like that same concept of setting up the host. And I don't know, Vladimir, if that would get back to what you want. And basically, like, you set up a null host, effectively, you just have the V8 JavaScript engine, right? Or you set up a host that has all of Node, you have a Node one.
Yeah, like so it's kind of very very similar. Uh, you're referring to host. I remember like in the past, like people we had to do stuff like this. So the host kind of defines all different interesting behavior. Yeah.
And that would almost make then this API, again, it's like, now it's a little bit less node specific, right? It's like we have the default thing, like that callback. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a simple callback, or like we need then, like, the configuration options. A lot of the ones we talked about are actually node specific, right? So I'm just like rolling over in my head, like, is what we're talking about do you then extend that to say like now there is a way to do it for Node, but the overall API is defined in a way where you could see using this with something other than Node, right?
I mean, the configuration options would have to be node specific, right? Because it is libnode, various levels of libnode, right? And if you want nothing, then it is barely libnode, but we still call it that because that's the name of the project, right? So you know what I mean? But I
Yeah,
mean,
oh
you
yeah,
can get like
absolutely.
absolutely nothing.
But it comes back a little bit towards like we have the JS native API and the Node API so that like people can implement the JS native API and then they can build their own equivalent to the Node API for their environment. So like, for example, if there's another runtime and it wants to use the same API to load for embedding, and like, it's like, okay, here's my code, which would be generic. Here's my code, which would be node specific. That's kind of a nice distinction because we've seen that like other runtimes have adopted Node API because it was something that, you know, was generic in that JavaScript side of things.
Fair. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, that is another line, right? That is the innermost circle, right? This JS native API. You're right.
So I don't know if we've answered your question, but like you know,
You did like what I feel like at least that nobody said like no we don't want to this kind of JavaScript only like JavaScript engine only stuff. You said like it would be nice to have configurable. It's pretty much I like it. I also like to think it this way, and also what I heard right now like that you're saying it would be interesting to design this embedding API in a way that somebody else can use the same API on some other runtimes if they want to, right? Like so it may be
right. So like, how
part
do
of
we
this
make
API, maybe
those?
not.
Yeah, there's like a config, there's a callback that says set up the environment. And but is there some generic way that then the parameters that you pass, like, because you also need some parameters that then that callback gets those and it's not so tied to node or
Yeah, it may be difficult to achieve this goal in the first iteration of API.
yeah, like exactly. Like I don't, that's where like we may have answered your question with a lot more. But I think like even if we just had that first callback that said like, okay, here's the callback and that configures as much or as little as you want, great. And then, and even in the node context, I think I could see that being useful where somebody says, well, yeah, I don't want all of node. And, you know, we wouldn't figure out how you could do that. But if there is a callback that we use by default, in theory, you could just cut out pieces
Mhm.
and then, yeah, the rest of the other parts could be like something we evolve later on.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the in progress.
Mhm.
If we go over to
Actually, I
do,
do have a small update
yeah, go ahead.
on the last issue there on in
Mhm.
progress.
Okay.
Uh, I was looking into it yesterday, but I just posted my findings.
Yep.
Basically,
Okay.
in the last comment there, yeah, it's too complex of a conditional. So I'm not exactly sure what we should do in this case. Because basically what the tool that strips the experimental sections does is it uses regular expressions to look for sort of this match here. And depending on if it's not defined or defined, put whichever block needs to be in. And if you scroll up a little bit,
Yep.
that's the conditional there. And it's a bit too complex for
Right.
um,
Okay.
for the current tool.
So,
That's at least the root problem.
right.
Um, and I'm not exactly sure the best way to update the tool or use a different approach entirely.
Throwing out ideas, is there any way to change that set of defines so that it would be easier for the tool? Like if we reorganized it to be in a different order or whatever, like maybe more lines, so like less compact, but it would then, the tool would be like, oh, yeah, okay, I understand what to do.
Would it help if we had like a secondary macro that evaluates to part of this macro and then just have a simple condition here, or apparently simple, or does the tool like follow the macro definitions?
The tool basically only supports the macro definitions for if def and if and def. And then doesn't support any additional preprocessor directives. And that's why it kind of would that's why it fails on this, if that answers your question.
So that my follow-on one is like that first one is the answer is not obvious. The other one would be like, could we just add another like if def that
Yeah, I
tool
think
could
that's
understand?
I think that's what maybe Gabe was also kind of saying. Or some way to like put some sort of attribute type thing or whatever. Yeah. Okay,
Like
I
it
can
could be
investigate that as well.
if like strip experimental, and like that would actually never be set in except for the headers, right? Like the header,
Right.
it would never be set, so never be used, but like the tool could use it, right? And
Right. Okay. I can look into those ideas. That makes sense. Thank you.
yeah, no, thanks for taking a look.
And that's all I have on that.
Okay, so we'll take a look at to-dos. Anything people have in terms of they want to chat about on the to-do side of things? Okay, if not, in terms of need triage, I think we've chatted about this one. Let's just take a look and see if there's anything. Okay, I think this one we just need to take another look at. Leave it there. That one's just a thing to be done. Similarly, and I think those I can just remove because they're already landed if I. Yeah,
The buffer
right,
from
it's
array
really
buffer
just
just
that
landed.
one pull request, which is. Gonna, I think this is like remove.
Those are from a different repository.
Oh, okay, right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so never mind. I'll leave them, but they're ones. This one, right? This one is right. Okay.
That yeah.
Got it.
Those are from node add-on examples. Okay.
Right. Okay. So those are ones we still. I wonder if we can just. Yeah, the checks have passed. Okay, we just need to actually. That's fine. This one. Okay, this one's been around a long time. And I guess it was marked as stale in the main community. I think I'm tempted to like, it's probably still the same, not a bad idea, but we don't have anybody who's necessarily going to look at it in the short term. And I'd almost think like from our board, we should just remove it because it's like, it's a core thing. We've said it's not a bad idea, but unless we think somebody's going to jump in, I don't see any point having it there every week that we look at. What do people think?
Mm, is there a way just to remove it from our board? Because I think the board is based off of various filters, right?
Uh,
Maybe that delete from project, but I don't know if that would
Right, I'm pretty sure
delete.
delete from project just takes it out of the
Yeah,
project, because I think things get added to the project on certain events.
right. Okay. That
So I'm
makes
pretty
sense.
sure, yeah, this delete from project will not delete it from the whole thing.
That makes sense then.
Okay, so I will do that. From this project, yes, okay. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the needs triage. I think anything else that we should chat about this week?
Just a quick follow-up. I checked on NPM and the Node add-on API module was published to 8.2.
Okay, great. Okay,
Mhm.
very good. Okay,
All right.
well, thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you and actually, before I forget, I'm not gonna be here next Friday. Because I'm off, so looking for a volunteer to chair if anybody can do that.
The 18th.
Yeah.
I should be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay. I think we had you set up so you can access the Zoom and
It's
everything.
it's been a while, but I
while,
think I
okay.
still have all of the credentials and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll try and remember to send an email as well, but I'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Alrighty.
All right.
See ya.
Okay.
Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.